Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. Oh boy, I have been waiting for this episode for so long. It's on my favorite topic. Hey, special educators, it's Jennifer from Positively Learning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today's episode is all about differentiation. Now, if you just rolled your eyes a little bit, I do understand. As an instructional coach working with new co-teaching partners and special educators, differentiation was a hot topic. Either the challenge was figuring out how to differentiate to meet so many different students' needs, or the challenge was finding time to differentiate. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. Let's start off with a definition. What does the word differentiation even mean? Differentiation is an instructional strategy, and it involves changing something about the content or the pace or the process of instruction with the goal of meeting individual students' needs. Now, special educators do this all the time. However, it's not confined to special education. Differentiation should be in all of our classrooms. Okay, before we move much further along, I have a confession to make. I am definitely a less is more type of person. If there's an opportunity to combine or simplify a process, I take it. And the same thing goes for differentiation. Let's circle back to the podcast, episode 11, when we talked about common classroom accommodations. I presented 4 different categories that accommodations could fall into. Now, the 4 categories are for accommodations, but why couldn't we use them for differentiation too? All right, so those categories are presentation, or the input of instructional content, response, which is the student's output, the way that they show what they know, the setting, and timing or pace. All right, with those 4 categories in mind, let's talk about differentiation and what it can look like in the classroom. 2 effective ways to provide differentiation is to pull small groups for instruction and to use flexible assignments. So teachers can pull these small groups so they can provide more targeted, individualized lessons using questions that are catered to what students need. Maybe one group benefits more from direct instruction in the small group. Maybe the next group is able to complete the activities using technology. Flexible assignments allow groups of students with different abilities to complete tasks based on their own strengths and interests. Another way to approach differentiated instruction is to provide different levels of support within the same lesson. So for example, a math lesson. Maybe one student is struggling a bit more with a concept and would benefit from one-on-one attention or using hands-on manipulatives or maybe additional practice problems, while another student in the same lesson is proving to be proficient. So maybe they would benefit from more challenging math problems or extensions, but this is all within the same lesson. Another way to approach differentiation is to use different types of materials within the same lesson. So for example, if a student is a visual learner, they could be using a picture book or a magazine to help understand a concept. Or maybe they're listening to the whole group instruction, but they're answering comprehension questions with a visual support, like a graphic organizer. Then a student who's more of an auditory learner could participate in the same instruction, but then they may move to an educational technology, something with audio that helps them interact with the lesson material. Now, it's pretty easy for me to sit here and throw out all of these ideas, but one thing I want to make very clear is I'm not suggesting you are creating different lesson plans. In fact, you're differentiating the presentation of one lesson plan, the way students are going to interact with it or respond to that content, but you're creating just one lesson plan. So here's how I would do it. So let's take one lesson plan and let's practice differentiating within the same lesson. So this could be a lesson that you wrote, or maybe it's a lesson plan that came with a curriculum that you're using in your classroom. I would look at the lesson as bookends. What's happening at the beginning and what's happening at the end. Most likely it's going to be some type of objective at the beginning and assessment at the end, and hopefully they match each other. Now the next step is to see everything that's already provided in this lesson and take inventory. If it's a reading A to Z lesson, maybe it's a decodable book that's included, or if it's a curriculum, maybe there's some type of response or independent practice sheets. You're going to gather everything that you have, and then you're going to determine what's missing. Maybe you're looking at it and thinking, okay, we don't have any technology. I know that's going to be just right for students. I'm going to look at my boom card inventory, or maybe you use Zern in your math instruction. And I'm going to be taking a look at technology and just adding that to the collection, aligning it with that specific objective. You could do the same thing with your manipulatives. Maybe there are some specific manipulatives that either go with the lesson really well, or you know a student is going to really benefit from using them. Same thing with the visuals. Are there vocabulary visuals for math or ELA or whatever the content area is? And I would gather that all. So basically you've got one lesson with so many different activities. Now you're not planning these activities. You're just gathering. By now you should be looking at this lesson plan and seeing all of these activities. And now you're ready to provide instruction. I would not plan which student is going to get which and make yourself a little bit crazy in that way, but instead I would be putting into the lesson opportunities to check for understanding. So maybe you are teaching whole group or small group and you're asking questions, and from there you can determine what differentiation would be appropriate. Because you've gathered all these things, you take an inventory, you can make a quick decision. So let's say you've asked a question and some students have shown proficiency. Okay, you're ready for independent work. Maybe there are some students that are not showing proficiency, so you could pull a small group. Maybe students are going to respond or having a quick assessment using technology. Maybe other students are going to respond by doing a small task or playing a quick game with you in a small group with their peers. There are so many different choices we can offer our students, and really student choice is the best differentiation of all. If you're still listening, I thank you very much. And maybe you have a small glimmer of hope. You're realizing that you don't need to write differentiated lesson plans to meet all your students' needs. But I do have one more piece of advice, and this is the most important of all. In this podcast, I've given a ton of ideas, and then I'm going to send you to the show notes that has a blog post link with even more ideas. But my piece of advice is to choose just one new thing. As you look at the lesson plan and you gather inventory of what you already have, you're going to notice some gaps. Just fill it in with one new thing. Next time you teach this lesson, you can add one more thing and continue adding as you go. Don't try to do it all at once. So, for example, maybe you're noticing you're missing some technology and you know that that would definitely be suited for your students. So you look at the gaps and then you look at your boom card inventory and you fill in some of those gaps. You're done. Next time you teach the lesson, maybe it's going to be visuals or a hands-on task that you can add, and you're going to build up this inventory. We've reached the end. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to hear what you think about these tips. Definitely click on over to the show notes and follow the links to the blog post where you can see more examples of differentiation and how it's going to help support your students. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.